Hi, in this video I will show you what's new in the hair tool. So let's start by improvement in the hair shader. So you can still colorize the specular highlights like so and adjust the roughness, but now there is more control over the color. So you can colorize the base color maybe to green, then you can colorize roots, so maybe I can make them bluish, then increase root color mix factor, and there is on top of that root offset. So we have this kind of control. There is the option to control tips also. So you can make them maybe pinkish, then increase tip mix factor, then adjust the offset like so. On top of that, there is also debug mix color. So this works with the debug color input. So you could debug any attribute. You could debug maybe UV debug color, random color, or sampled color, or something that you want to mix into the base color. So then if you connect this input, so let's say make it maybe orange, it will now mix in additive way this orange with base color. So this is useful for debugging some attributes. There is the depth mix factor. It will be easier to see on more uniform highlights, on more uniform base color. So the default hair tool textures comes with the depth pass in the RGB channel. You can then mix this with the depth mix factor. There is the option to colorize also this depth pass to make it maybe more pinkish if you want. There is the ambient occlusion mixing, but I will later show how to use that. Alpha strength will adjust the opacity, the alpha diffuse mix. So if I set the alpha diffuse mix to 0, we have no opacity map mixed into diffuse. If I set this to 1, we get 100% of opacity map mixed with diffuse. There is the subsurface scale parameter. There is also the metallic color. It will be easier to see if I make the base color darker. Then I can make this maybe yellowish. This is the result we get. On top of that, you can control the roughness of this metallic highlights and change the tangent roughness and tangent frequency. Now I will show you how to use the ambient occlusion vertex color attribute. So in here we have this vertex color ambient occlusion input, and it is connected to the AO attribute. If I now increase the vertex color mix factor, you see the color is getting darker because the attribute does not exist yet. And if attribute does not exist, it is considered to be black. Let's fix that using Ctrl-Shift-H, generate ambient occlusion. This will generate the ambient occlusion attribute. Let's repeat this in here, generate AO, and also in here, Ctrl-Shift-H, generate AO. So the pop-up panel you can see in here is the same as the settings in the modifiers in the ambient occlusion generator modifier in here. So we can maybe show the settings, Ctrl-Shift-H, generate AO, and we can increase the samples, but it will be then slower. For brighter hair, you may want to increase the base color value, something like this. There is the spread amount for the casted rays. There is the option to blur the ambient occlusion if you want. You can increase the first bounce factor and second bounce factor if you want to make the ambient occlusion brighter. They use additional ambient occlusion mesh. It will be easier to see in this mesh. So I can now use maybe low poly version of the head and make it so that this head will cast ambient occlusion on the hair. So I will now enable use additional mesh, and it may be a bit hard to see, but in the hairline in here we get a bit of more ambient occlusion being casted from the head. And the last is the name of attribute that is generated. So usually you do not want to change this, or it will mess up the shader. And last thing is that this ambient occlusion modifier is calculated on every hair update. So if you change some parameters in the deformers, it will have to recalculate the ambient occlusion. So it may be slow, and to make it faster, you may want to disable the modifier for ambient occlusion. But then the attribute is not generated, and this is then set to black color. So instead of disabling the modifier, you can uncheck use AO This way the attribute will be generated and set to white, but without calculating the effect. So yes, this will be faster. Now I will show you how to colorize UV regions. So the idea is we will generate attribute called UV region UV debug color. To do this, let's go to the UV image editor and scroll to the Hair UV button on the top header bar. Press it, and it will show you your UV regions. If you hover your mouse over one of those, you will see in the hotkeys list the C key will show you the color pop-up. So the currently color is black. Click on this, change this to your color, then repeat. Press C, change color to maybe something different, then one more time. So let's say instead of manually trying to match like this green color, you wanted to share this color between multiple UV regions. You can just press C, then Ctrl C to copy this green color, then move your cursor to the red box, press C, and then Ctrl V to paste this green color. One more time, press C, Ctrl V, and for this box I will press C and make it red. Okay, enter to save, and let's preview this attribute. Does it work? Let's preview the UV debug color, and we see the strands are black. This is because for performance reasons you have to go to Profile, Profile Other, and enable UV debug colors. Now you see the attribute is correctly generated. So let's link this debug color and link this to the debug color attribute in the shader. Let's preview the shader, and I will increase the debug color mix factor. And you see each hair card is colorized depending on the color of the UV region it received. If we go to the deformers, we are using this UV region distribute that is using all regions. I can manually pick multiple green ones with shift clicked, then enter. So now this will distribute only the green regions. I can now add one more UV region distribute, and instead of using all regions, I will set manually it to use only the red region. So if I disable that, we see under the green UV regions, and it is now overridden with the red one. I can now mask this deformer using the length mask, and it will make it so that the longest strands are receiving the red region. You can tweak the settings in here, and I can add the randomize on top of that to feather the effect like so. And now if I disable debug color mix, this is the result we get. I will show you now another improvement in the UVs. So in here we have 4 UV boxes assigned to those strands on the right. I can select a bunch of them, use Ctrl-Shift-H, set UV regions, and I can select any of the UVs or multiple of them. But in the past you could not tell if the UV should be flipped in the X direction or not. But now if you hover mouse over the box, press F, then it will disable flipping, then it will flip all, or if you press F again, it will randomly assign flipped or not flipped version of the UVs. And this will give you full control over the UV per each strand. So if I select this one, I can just select region to use, press F to flip or not flip, enter. And remember that if you add strands filter, the strand filter often comes with the UV region distribute, which will override your UVs with its own UV. So I can override this maybe with the purple region, but if I disable strands filter or the distribute, UV region distribute, you see the original UVs are still there. So just don't be surprised if you select the UVs, select the strands, set UV region, maybe override this to red one. Does not seem like it worked, but if I disable strands filter, you see the red UVs were correctly assigned. Now I will show you the improvement in the braid deformer. So basically in the past, if we say had strand in here and wanted to generate braid, the issue was that one of those sub braids could grab only a few child strands, then the another sub-braid could grab bunch of strands in here, and then another grab bunch of strands in here, so it would not give even distribution. So one of those could have only like maybe 2 strands, then other sub-braid could have like 10 strands, and another one also could have 10 strands. But now with the new algorithm, it will distribute the strands evenly between each of those sub-braids. So this is no longer the issue. Another improvement is that I made a parameter called global time in some of the deformers. So the issue is what I try to do in here is to push out those strands in this flowy way. But without this global time, you would end up with something like this noise and mess. So the issue is caused by, because some strands is starting in this spot, it will start flowing like so, but another strand will start flowing in this spot. So you see that the heels are not aligned at all. So I made it this use global time parameter. It will force all the strands to use the same kind of time domain, and thanks to this, they will flow nicely together. And the same use global time parameter is also used in the curls deformer. So in here, if I go to the curls, I can disable randomization on the frequency, and you see all those are receiving the same frequency. In the past, if I disable the global time, it would be impossible to get this nice flow. Now I will show you the hair modeling improvements, but first let's enable strands overlay. We see no real strands because we have to bake and convert this hair system into real geometry. So I will select the base hair system, press bake, active subsystem, and now we see the strands. I can now move to the hair modeling, and the first feature is that if I select everything and in IK mode, I can move those strands, and you will see they are colliding with the head surface. So in the past they would not collide. So this is kind of way more helpful, in my opinion, to model with this IK mode. The second feature is that we can now use the hair modeling not only in object mode, but also in the sculpt mode. On the bottom, we have the hair modeling. So you see you can use those the same hotkeys. So all the hotkeys are available in here. One cool feature with the sculpt mode is that it will synchronize selection with the Blender selection. So if I select those strands in here, I can now jump to the combo brush, and the hair tool selection is automatically converted to the Blender selection. So you can easily select strands like that. And another feature that is kind of cool, let's switch maybe to the path brush, and then let's jump to the hair modeling. Now, if I select maybe the right side, I can now left click, and the hair tool will remember that the last used brush was the path brush, so the left click will work as the path. But you can at any time obviously use the hair modeling hotkeys. So I am using grab, rotate, and scale. You can cut those strands and use all the modeling tools available in here. And the last feature I wanted to show, there is new root mode. So it will basically just rotate strands around their root. So you see those strands are kind of bending around the root, and it will be easier to see on the simpler object. So I will bake this to the real geometry using Ctrl-Shift-H bake system to curve. Select everything, and if I rotate all those strands in the root mode, you see they are kind of bending like so. If you do not want this effect, I can disable the soft selection, proportional editing. Now if I rotate, they are rotating in uniform fashion. There is also the scale mode, so if I scale them, it will just scale each strand toward its own root position. And with the scaling, if you scale, then press Shift, it will equalize length toward the longer or toward the shorter strand. So I am holding now Shift. And in the translation mode, so if I press G, it will just jump back to the IK mode, since I had no idea how it would behave in the root mode. So the scale and the rotation is kind of uniform for the root mode, and the translation is basically going back into the chain mode. So with these tools, I hope it will be easier to model and quickly deform the hair. Now I will show you the move to border deformer. So basically, in a case like this, where we have hairstyle with split, you often end up with ugly bald spot. With the move to border, it will remove this bald spot easily. And the way it works in here is that this hair system is spawned from the scalp, and we have one border edge in here. Also in edit mode, I can show you that I marked this edge as sharp using Ctrl E mark sharp, and on top of that I added edge split that uses the sharp edges. So now, thanks to this edge in the center is also seen as border edge, and move to border will now move the strands to those edges. So to make it maybe easier to see what is going on, I will add the trim deformer, reduce the length of the strands like that, and I will animate the move to border. So without move to border, with move to border. I will disable the trimming, and let's look at this from the other side. And it is not looking the best. We got rid of a bunch of strands that were spawned in the center. There is a way to fix that, but first I will show you the new input mask on the hair system on the right. So this system is basically just a bunch of hair strands spawned from plane with radius set deformer, which will just adjust radius of strands and taper them. I want to now show you the new input mask called the border edge distance. And I will now reduce the range of this edge distance mask. And the way it works, it will basically assign value to the mask to the strands depending on the strand distance to the border edge. So in this case in here, we are around 0.5 meters from the strand. So that's why this will receive value of mask 1. And the strands that are closest to border, they have distance close to 0. So that's why mask value is also 0. You can adjust this distance, or you can invert this. Okay, so how this helps with the issue on the right, where we have some bold spots. So basically I can now mask this effect with the new input mask, and I can tell this effect to only apply the movement of strands to the strands that are closest to the border edge. So let's do this. I will add the border edge distance, and I want to affect only strands that are around 0 to around 2 centimeters from border. So I will change distance to 0.02, and the effect is inverted. So I will reverse mask. Now the strands that are more than 2 centimeters from border, they are not affected at all. And strands that are closer than 2 centimeters, they are moved slightly to the border. So okay, let's see how this looks without move to border, with move to border. So you see the offset is now happening only on the close to border. I will disable trimming. Let's see in the solid material view, without and with. And now we have no longer issue of bold spots. And this move to border can be also useful in other cases. So in here we have this hairline, and this hairline is using the move to border. So without move to border, the hairline is kinda not the best. With move to border, I set this up so that the hair strands that are around 3 centimeters close to border, they will be moved even closer to border. And this effect can be useful when combined with the tilt align to border. So now those strands are aligned to the closest border, but I can limit this effect only to the strands based on the edge distance, border edge distance. I can set the range to 0.2, 0.3, invert. Now you see the aligning of tilt is only happening for the strands that are closest to the border. Okay, and before I end, I wanted to show you a small fun feature. If you use the split with center preset, and there is the roll parameter, if you increase this parameter, you will get basically the Dragon Ball Trunks powering up. Yes, so I hope you like this update, and see ya.